Brokers Alliance and the National Insurance Clearinghouse present the Business Insurance Zone, a Bravo video event. Broadcasting in HD 1080p on Vimeo, YouTube, the Insurance Newsnet, Agent Navigator, BrokersAlliance.com, and on Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, and the Insurance Forum. And now your host, the whiz of the biz, Steve Savant. Well, welcome everyone to the Business Insurance Zone, the talk show that spotlights insurance in your practice, keeps you up to speed on insurance news and products, features insurance strategies from top advisors. Get in the zone, the Business Insurance Zone. This is the biz. BrokersAlliance.com, or you can call 1-800-290-7226, extension 147 for any quotes or ideas or products or scenarios that we do on life insurance, disability, annuities, long-term care, and group pension plans. And remember, I'm not a legal or a tax expert, but if we have any strategies that you like and you want to move forward with them, always check with your CPA and your attorney. And if you're with a broker-dealer, don't forget to always check in with your compliance officer before moving forward. Well, today we have again, because we're talking about group pensions, retirement, qualified retirement plans. We're talking to Susan Hayek, head of our Group pension unit division. Sometimes I say unit. You know, I'm watching too much CSI, I think. And I'm thinking about Susan. You know, when you want to do group pensions, and I've had you on the show before. And again, remember, you can call her at 1-800-290-7226, extension 149. I'm looking at today. We've talked about so much in previous shows, but I'm kind of scared of this show, and here's why. Because most of our producers, we already hate the paperwork. You know, we're doing life insurance, annuities, LTC, especially LTCDI. The apps are like forever. They're multiple pages. And now we're talking about not only the applications and all the things you have to do to get into group, but all the micromanaging of the bureaucracy that's involved. And it looks scary, but you're going to demystify this, and you're going to make it easy to deal with, right? Mm-hmm. Trees will not be falling in forests, right?
That's correct.
Well, let's talk about this, because there's record keeping, there's tax accounting, there's enrollment, there's TPA, there's investment advisory issues. Talk a little bit about this. Has got to happen, right, to be compliant, but how have you made it easier? I mean, to play in these realms of what I call admin on steroids.
That's a good way to put it. Actually, depending upon the type of plan that you're opening up will depend upon the role that certain functions take place in that plan establishment. You know, we mentioned a little bit, like you said, record keeper, TPA, actuary, which we've talked about in previous segments. But really what happens is, depending upon the kind of plan that you're opening, will dictate who needs to be involved and help actually run the plan itself. Let's take a 401k plan for an example. Someone needs to be the record keeper because someone's got to be keeping track of the investments on the per participant level. So someone's doing that work. Sometimes a TPA will do that. Sometimes actually that's done at the vendor level. In our case, usually the TPAs we work with are more into the plan design and the consulting. That record keeping is being done at the fund level or the group variable annuity level, whoever is sponsoring that investment lineup. But again, everyone plays their role. You've got the third-party administrative firm that's potentially setting up the plan with the plan document, and then they're doing the annual administration and compliance. You have the record keeper keeping track of the investments at the participant level. You've got the actuary doing the calculations and signing the Schedule B if it's a defined benefit plan in any way, shape, or form. You've got the administrator, again, doing the 5500 form. Everyone plays that role, and then you, as the investment advisor on the particular plan, play the role in making sure that that investment policy statement or what's actually been dictated by the client is being run correctly.
When I think of TPA, third-party administrators, some plans are small enough where you don't really need to do that. You can do it in-house. But sometimes I see this, the big one is third-party administrators. When I'm looking at third-party administrators, what are the compliance issues that these guys have?
Well, what a third-party administrator does in the world of qualified retirement plans is they will do the administration and the compliance aspect of the plan. Now, what that means is any plan that you set up, it's got to be, we've talked in other segments about testing. You've got to make sure that it meets the requirements of participation, it meets coverage, it meets top-heavy, and that the plan is being operated in a non-discriminatory manner. So the third-party administrator will actually do those tests and perform those tests for you, and an annual evaluation will be done on the plan.
I've heard that we're getting so specific. Correct me if I'm wrong. I thought I heard this, that some TPAs are very good about record keeping their clients aware on their annual statements, everything else, but they outsource compliance. TPAs are outsourcing the compliance. Have you heard of any of that?
Well, here's the thing is, again, third-party administrative is kind of an interesting definition. Typically in the world of qualified retirement plans, a third-party administrative firm is going to do the annual administration, which would be that testing and compliance requirements, provide an annual valuation, which might include trust accounting and it might not, and then culminate with that 5,500 tax filing form that's required by the government. Record keeping is a little bit different.
Separate from this.
Totally separate from that. However, some third-party administrative firms will do record keeping in addition to the compliance and the administration of the plan itself. However, other third-party administrative firms stick with just the consulting aspect, and then they let the record keeping happen at the level of the vendor. And let's take, for example, Mutual of Omaha. They have a group variable annuity platform for a 401k plan in which they perform all the record keeping, provide the web interface, the VRU interface for the participants so they can look at their account on a daily basis. Then they would download data to the third-party administrative firm that would then take that data, perform all the compliance testing, do all of that, provide the annual valuation, and culminate with the $5,500 for the plan. So they have their respective roles.
Now you just brought up a carrier.
Correct.
And a lot of carriers have pre-constructed platforms.
They do.
They're ready to go. Mutual
Absolutely.
of Omaha is one of the big ones, actually. And most of these that are big are going to be fairly sizable insurance companies, I've noticed. Not all of them, but a lot of them are. Now, when we're talking about having a platform where everything's pretty much boilerplated, where there's going to be differences in platforms, there's going to be costs, there's going to be what they'll do, what they won't do. When you think about some of the players, like you mentioned Mutual of Omaha, are they a major player when it comes to this kind of platform? I mean, when I think of them, I think of, Carl Perkins and the Wild Kingdom, and I think of them as being, kind of a medical more than I do in group. So are they a major player as an example?
They are. Typically, they'll stay in what's known in the industry as the micro to small plan space, which is, some people do that based on the size of the plan. That would be under $10 million. So from a startup plan that doesn't have any money in it yet, somebody starting it up this year, up to probably about $10 million. However, it gets a little, over 10 million up into the space. It depends on how you're dividing out that category between micro, small, medium, large, and then mega plans.
So if by the size of the plan, you might choose a different platform depending upon where you would go.
Correct.
So there's, when I think about it, how many, like Mutual of Omaha's, there's about 3 or 5 players really, or is there really, you think there's a dozen, or?
Well, most of the major insurance companies would have a platform. Your John Hancock, your Nationwide, your Transamerica, your Great West, some of these larger companies, Lincoln, they've all got platforms that play in the 401k space as well. But you've also got, competing in that same environment, the Fidelity and American funds of the world, which typically will offer their own mutual funds on the platform.
So is there any conflict when I have the vendor, you have the vendor that's doing the platform, and it's his funds?
Well, and that's what's called proprietary funds, known in the industry. If they're only proprietary funds, that's one thing to consider, whether or not you want that for the investment platform. Other investment platforms are set up and selected where they might use a few of the proprietary funds from that particular carrier. However, the majority of their lineup is non-proprietary in scope. They've got a blend depending upon how their investment selection committee decided to pick the funds that are in the lineup.
Speaking about funds, because I find this kind of fascinating, generally, I remember a couple times when I was in certain groups, we'd go to a meeting. The investment advisor would get up and tell us all the possible funds and different families of funds that they had and other investments that they could get into. Then I never saw him again. And I'm sitting there going, okay, we've had a bad year, a good year. How do I re-asset allocate? I'm not getting it. I'm getting a mail of all what I have, the data, the balance, all that, annual statements. I'm happy with that, quarterly actually in some of these cases. But at the end of the day, at the year has been topsy-turvy. and either it's a sideways market, down market, up market, I need to know, well, how do I re-asset allocate? How do I do that? And I don't see these annual meetings of advisors.
Well, actually, you should. Every plan that has been established should have what's called an investment policy statement. And basically what that does is that's the advisor sitting down with the plan, the owner, called the trustee, the person who's going to be in charge of the plan, and says, okay, for this plan, how do we want to make sure that the assets are invested? What do we want to be able to offer to the participants? And usually that investment policy statement is going to dictate, are we going to have annual meetings? Are we going to have quarterly meetings? How frequent do we want to make sure the employees know about the plan?
If the advisor said we were going to meet twice a year and he didn't comply with his own document, is that an issue?
Well, it's an issue from the standpoint of probably arrangement and association with that particular advisor. As any business person or as anyone who has entrusted the care of the investments of their plan, they've set up the qualified plan, and the expectation is not then being met. And yes, it would theoretically, if you've got an investment policy statement that says we are going to evaluate this on a semi-annual basis, if that's not being done, that could eventually cause problems.
Could you do the Donald Trump and say you're fired?
You can.
You can.
Actually.
Well, I'm thinking, we've talked in other shows, we've talked about pretty much brand new, nobody has a plan. When we come back, I'm going to talk about all the same idea, but I'm going to talk about existing plans because I think there's some rollover or replacement that could happen. Well, listen, you can contact me at my address, thebiz@brokersalliance.com, or call me at 1-800-290-7226, extension 147, or hop out to our website at www.brokersalliance.com. And I just want to encourage all of us, when we're listening to Susan, these are huge opportunities for us to expand our practice. We're going to come back with more on looking at another 401k or another plan, and should we replace it or not. We'll be right back after the break.
Steve Savant here. For years I've heard that less than 2% of all term life insurance ends in a claim. That's not many, and clients had to die to receive the benefits. That's the old term insurance. Now start selling the new insurance. The term insurance that covers your client through a chronic illness, a catastrophic event, or a terminal diagnosis, and pays their monthly premium during extended periods of unemployment. What term life insurance can do all that? Western Reserve Alliance Advantage Term with living benefits. No other term insurance product bundles so many solutions to life's unexpected problems. And all in one policy. So for more information, call Brokers Alliance 1-800-290-7226. Stop selling the old term. Start selling the new.
Welcome back to the Business Insurance Zone. In this segment, we're going to talk to Susan about existing plans that are already on the street. And remember, when we're going to be talking about a lot of things, maybe even slip into a bit of controversy today. But while we're doing it, just remember, neither one of us are legal counsel or CPAs. So before you move forward with any of the strategies, especially the tactic of replacing a plan, don't forget to talk to your attorney or your E&O insurance. No, I'm kidding. And,
Not.
and CPA, and perhaps maybe if you're with a broker-dealer, don't forget to talk to your compliance officer. I want you to remind you that all our shows are out on all our venues, on Vimeo, YouTube, the Insurance Newsnet, Agent Navigator, on our own site, brokersalliance.com, on our on-demand, and of course, you can check out all our social media at Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, and the Insurance Forum, where I personally blog. I can't believe I'm blogging. I'm Twittering. I'm Twittering and blogging. What's the other one? Is there another one? I think there's instant messaging.
There you go.
I feel like I'm doing everything now. It's like, I cannot believe all the communication platforms you have. And after this show, we'll be twittering about replacing some contracts that aren't that hot. Now, I don't want to disparage any platform that's out there and say one contract, one TPA, one formula is good or not, but we want to do due diligence. And part of the due diligence, at least in my world, is the cost effectiveness of the plan. I mean, there's stuff all over the board. I've seen plans that are like, oh my gosh, that's very inexpensive to play. And then I see the same plan, the same number of employees, and the numbers through the roof, 3 times the expense loads. I want you to talk a little bit about what's out there now on the street and what we should be looking for, because I think it's a huge area to upgrade our clients and move them to our plans, right? And to really, I really want to hammer this segment because I really believe there's a lot out there that can be moved. Talk a little bit about that.
Great. You bring up a good point. Obviously, there
Well,
are...
wait a minute. I'm sorry. All my points are good. I know I said,
That
no,
is
all my
true.
points are good. Okay.
Every one of them is
All right.
good. Some are better than others.
Oh, yes. Oh, now we're qualifying them. Okay.
There you go. Well, just from a statistical perspective, I want you to know that in 2010, there were 65 million participants that were covered by some form of a qualified retirement plan. That does not include IRAs. That does not include governmental plans. Those are just qualified defined contribution or defined benefit plans, accounting for a little bit over $17 trillion in total. Assets, 3.1 trillion of those are in 401k plans alone. So those plans exist. You're probably going to talk to your clients and come up with the fact, yes, I have a 401k plan. It's with Fred Smith, my UBS broker, or whoever it is, and it's at such and such. Well, but is that plan being serviced? Is that plan,
What does that mean, though? My plan's not being serviced.
Okay, you brought up in the earlier segment, hey, am I in a set it, forget it environment? How often do I see my investment advisor
Well, wait a
on the
minute. That's
plan?
really true. I mean, I see that all the time.
Right.
It's set it, forget it. I haven't seen the guy.
Right,
All right. So that I'm not being serviced. I'm not being attended to.
correct.
And the platform, even though it may actually call for him to attend to it or her to attend to it, whoever it might, I want to look at policy. So one part is, do I even have a person overseeing this anymore?
Yeah, is
Actively.
my investment advisor actually actively servicing my plan? The other important thing is, what kind of investment returns am I getting? Is my platform providing the investment returns that I want based on my investment policy
Well,
statement?
that issue alone after 2008 would be enough to make me move.
Absolutely. And then the third issue as well is, okay, so you got service, you've got investment performance, and then you've got fees. Now, we talked about in an earlier segment, fee disclosure is coming, folks. I mean, it's coming, it's going to happen.
Well, I love it. They regulated it. They put the fees online, and then just about the time we think, okay, get ready for Armageddon, right?
comes.
They delayed it again.
That is correct.
In fact, how far out is it delayed now?
Well, right now, what they're saying is that 1/1 of 2012 is when fee disclosure must be available and ready for the qualified retirement plan.
Of course, they said must last time too, didn't
Well,
they?
they did.
I don't understand why the government is delaying this, but okay, that's another show.
That's a whole nother, not my bailiwick.
Okay, I'm wondering though, when I'm looking at the compliance issues, which we're bringing up now, I'm looking at the fees. I mean, I'm completely taken back that I have seen plans that are so similar. They look very similar, using similar platforms, and yet one plan is 3 times the expense loads. And now they have to disclose these fees. Well,
They're going to.
They're supposed to. And by the way, couldn't I ask the plan provider now to disclose?
Absolutely.
I could still demand it, right?
Well, here's the thing is the contracts that you sign as the employer, as the sponsor of the plan, that is all dictated in those contracts. It's just a matter of maybe digging out those contracts and saying, what am I actually paying for this particular plan? What are the fees that are being paid? What am I paying? What's the plan paying? And what are my participants actually paying?
If I look at the fees structure, and our producers can collect all this, right? They can ask for it. We'll need to see all the fees, everything. Then you can digest it and tell us, is this a good deal or a bad deal? Because if it's a good deal, we're not going to touch it.
Well, and here's the thing too. Fees have a range. And there again, is it a good deal? Is it not a good deal? It depends on what you're getting. And there's so many different factors that go into the cost of a plan. What are you offering? Are you offering highly specialized funds in the plan for the participants? That might cost a little bit more because it'll cost more money to have those funds in the platform. Am I looking at strictly funds that are index funds? That's not going to cost quite as much to have a plan that maybe only has index
Okay,
funds.
now you just brought up 2 different things that I want to make sure I clear my head.
Sure.
when you said the fund costs, I get that. Mutual funds, whatever, there's your expense loads.
Exactly.
I was over on admin land in my left brain,
And they both play a part in
They
the
do.
cost of a plan.
So I mean, if I was trying to reduce my costs, I was just saying, hey, I'm going to be doing indexing for the rest of my life to keep it cheap. But that nobody wants to actually do that because there's ways to allocate to make it really perform better.
Correct.
But my problem is I have that expense. Now I have other expenses just to keep the thing alive and online.
Right, you've got record keeping expenses, you've got potential administration expenses, you've got potential trust accounting expenses,
right.
depending upon who's actually performing those duties. Now, sometimes what will happen is a third-party administrative firm is performing the majority of those, and they're charging a fee for it. The plan, we talked about plan document earlier, the plan will dictate how those fees can be paid. Sometimes they can be paid strictly from the plan assets. They can be paid by the employer. The plan will dictate who pays those fees. A lot of times the employer pays those actual administration compliance costs for the plan. It's a deduction for them, and usually that's a cost of actually having the plan. There are plans though that are set up in which those fees can be borne by the plan. Depending upon the size of the plan, especially larger plans, they might go ahead and actually, those fees might be absorbed by the plan and paid by the plan itself, which would then actually trickle down to a cost for operating the plan.
So when I look at the asset fees, that's one thing, and I'm looking at all the admin fees on the other
Correct.
side. I'm a left brain, right brain guy.
Right.
Now I'm looking at these total fees, and there are ways. Some of the platforms that we deal with, even at Brokers Alliance, we've figured out a way to homogenize some of this and make it very cost effective, and so that the last thing you want to do is, I'm saving for my retirement, but it's killing me.
It's killing me.
It's killing
The costs
me.
are killing me.
Yeah. So we want to be able to make sure platforms. In fact, actually, one of the other segments you said you really liked Mutual of Omaha. You thought their platform was not only a really good platform, period, but it's effective, it's efficient, and it can play with any of the big boys. Because there's several major carriers out there
Sure.
that are really big players in this area.
Absolutely.
In this space. And depending upon the size of the assets, right, will depend on what carrier we could use. So what do you need from our producers? What do you need information-wise? How can they collect it? Or do you have a collection?
We have a form.
You have a form?
Of course we do.
Of course you do. Well, listen, you're going to
Yes.
call for that form so that you can go ahead. We'll send it to you. You can either call Susan, 1-800-290-7226 at her extension 149, or write her Susan. Her last name is Hajek. I just want to cheer.
I know.
Hajek. Susan.Hajek at brokersalliance.com, because her last name doesn't sound like it's pronounced. All right?
No, it does.
Okay, and that'll be the next thing about Steve's dialectic teaching of Eastern European languages.
Yes.
Right? English is bad enough. We don't say, our words don't even work.
That's true.
So, well, when I'm talking about having our guys and gals out in the producer world, go ahead and send in this information. Then you're going to digest it, and we'll be able to grade. Susan's kind of got her own personal grading system on, is this okay? And by the way, when Susan says it's okay, it's kind of like, pretty indifferent. Not bad, but it always can be better. And what we're going to do is she'll look at that and tweak it. She'll tell you we could do much better, save the company a lot of money, make it more effective, and we'll actually do what the plan says. If it says the advisor is supposed to show up once a year, twice a year, and actually talk about re-asset allocating, he'll be there, she'll be there. Because we do plans, if you say it, we're doing it. I mean, that's kind of a new thing, right? We actually say what we're going to do.
Absolutely, and that's important, because that is the number one reason why plan sponsors switch advisors and also switch platforms. Is service is a huge issue. Yes, cost and investment performance do play a part in it as well, but service is usually the number one issue why they're switching.
When we went through our economic downturns in 2007-8, that whole period was pretty rough. I would say that would be an understatement. It was terrible.
Yes.
It was the worst economic conditions we've ever incurred in the United States, in my lifetime especially. So when I think about different people looking for different advisors, because right now I still think, even though it's 2011, I see a lot of people still saying, I'm still not happy. I'm continually going to different seminars. I'm hunting down advisors. I'm trying to find somebody that's actually going to hold my hand, not through the good times. That's pretty easy. I need somebody to bring me the comfort and the solace and give me and the biggest thing that I find advisors don't give is empathy on asset losses. I don't see the kind of grief that goes through it. And remember, some of our clients on some of these platforms that I think are not effective, are not efficient, lost 30 to 40% of their base. And why was somebody not in there going to cash or telling us what to do? 90% of American investors are relying on a third-party substantial authority, some kind of guy or gal that's going to be able to walk them and escort them through this. What you do for us, Susan, which I love, is you escort us through all that is group, including all the things we're talking about right now in this segment, which are the fees. Now, I'm trying to figure out why this, I would think the fees would be competitive, or that everybody would be really close to each other, but they're not.
It varies from carrier, it varies by plan size, it varies by the service model that you're trying to get, it varies by the functionality that the vendor's going to play.
Do you got a rule of thumb where you say, if you're paying X amount, that's just too much?
Well, and
I don't
there
want to
again,
say one
there
word,
are
but
so many variables out there. You've got your people that blog out there that will give you some numbers that can range anywhere from 1.5% up to 2.5%, and the range is so broad that I don't even want to go into that because there are so many factors that are dependent on that.
We can call Susan again at 1-800-290-7226, her extension 149. Talk to her about the fees. She'll kind of give you the yin and yang for it. Remember, you can also write me if you want to. I'd rather write Susan. You can write me, though, at thebiz@brokersalliance.com or hop onto our website at www.brokersalliance.com. I'm Steve Savant. You've been listening to the Business Insurance Zone. Well, that's the buzz on the biz for today. Get into the zone, the Business Insurance Zone.
This has been a Bravo video event of the National Insurance Clearinghouse and Brokers Alliance, one of the largest distributors of insurance products and services to a nationwide network of insurance professionals. You can contact Brokers Alliance at brokersalliance.com or 1-800-290-7226, extension 147.